Well, today this is Scott with DecoyPro.com, and hopefully you've had a chance to maybe check out my website a little bit already or see some of my emails come through. But today we're going to be going over Goose Decoying 101. So basically, going to go over some great tips and diagrams for you to really help you accelerate your goose hunting success. What you can plan on for today is probably half an hour to maybe 45 minutes of me giving you some really excellent tips and information today as we go through. I'll go over a quick agenda here in 1 second, but just plan on maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of some great quality information on goose hunting. And then at the end, I'm going to do a spot specifically for questions and answers. So you guys already know how to pop in those questions in that chat box by hitting the question mark. So feel free to do that anytime here during the presentation today. So just pop those anytime along the way. I'll try to either answer them right away if I can. Otherwise, like I said, I'll make sure to get all those questions at the end of the presentation as well. So again, today we're going over Goose Decoying 101. All right. So just again, to give you guys a quick overview here on the agenda for today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to first cover selecting the right decoys for you. So I don't know what you guys want, but when I first got into goose hunting, honestly, I was a little bit overwhelmed by all the different kinds of decoys I could select from. So not only the different styles of decoys, but also different brands. I'm not necessarily going to get into each different brand or anything like today, but more so just specifically on how to select the right decoys for you and your situation. So whether it be full body decoys or shell decoys, or I'm just going to kind of give you an overview on each kind to really help you understand them and help you make the right selection, whether you're just starting your decoy spread or you're adding to it, just to kind of help give you a great overview on all of them. Then I'm going to get into the importance of wind direction. So if you're getting into goose hunting, honestly, guys, it's going to be one of the biggest keys to your success is understanding how wind direction impacts goose hunting and how you set up your decoys. I'm going to give you an in-depth presentation on that. I'm actually going to do some drawing on some of my decoy diagrams I'm going to show you here tonight. And then I'm also going to work into our top 3 performing decoy spreads. So make sure you stick around. Here again, I'm going to go over 3 specific spreads that I've had really great luck with, and also great luck from feedback from others that I've heard from that have used these that are a part of my followers. So make sure that you stick around for that part. Again, I'm going to go over specifically each diagram. I'm going to do some drawing on them so you can really understand how each one can benefit you and how to set it up properly. And then I'm going to get into blind placement and concealment. So another critical piece to being successful with goose hunting is concealing your blind, because if you're within the sight of geese, definitely going to have some challenges of being able to bag those geese. And then also some tips and ideas on where you can place your blind to be most effective. And then I have put together some opportunity for you to learn more. So I've got an additional resource for you guys that if any of you are available or interested in learning more beyond what I cover tonight, definitely have an opportunity for you to do that. My goal for you tonight is to give you a great overview of goose hunting and then give you some additional resources to use after this. And then finally, again, questions and answer section at the end there. So if you do have questions along the way, feel free to just hit that question mark on your screen, pop in those questions. And like I said, I'll try to either hit those along the way. So if there's a slide that comes up that you've got a question on, type in that question right away. I'll try to get to it. And then if I do miss any during the presentation here, I'll get to them at the end. All right, guys. And just to give you a quick overview on who I am. Again, my name is Scott with DecoyPro. I live in Minnesota here, and I've been goose hunting for a number of years now. But the reason I put together DecoyPro was to help other fellow waterfowl hunters, because when I first got into goose hunting, for me it was just a trial and error. There wasn't, I didn't have anybody, telling me here's what you do, and just giving me some really actionable, easy to understand tips. And that's why I put this together, because when I went out there and I found different websites and stuff like that, there certainly was some information out there on waterfowl hunting. But honestly, I felt like so much of it was written as if, I had already been hunting for 20 years, and none of it was just broken down into simple, easy to understand steps. And so that's what I'm doing for you guys with DecoyPro, is to make it simple for you to understand and just give you actionable, easy to understand tips. Just here, guys, a couple quick pictures of myself with my daughter. She's actually one of my best hunting buddies. Comes with me on pretty much every hunt. Certainly do hunting with some other friends as well, but She's a great pal for that. Her name's Isabel, and she's 9 years old. And not quite to the point yet where she can be shooting, but within the next couple of years, hopefully we get there, because you guys, not sure about you guys, but I've definitely had those days where I could use an extra person with a gun in the field. So that's just a quick overview on who I am. All right, now let's get into selecting the right decoys for you. So again, as I talked about a little bit earlier, when I first got into goose hunting, guys, I was honestly just really kind of overwhelmed on the amount of different decoys that I could choose from. Should I be buying full body decoys, shell decoys, silhouette decoys? I mean, what should I buy? What's effective? And so I want to just touch on each kind here so you can get a quick overview of them and understand how they can benefit you and the considerations with them. So the first kind of decoy I want to cover is full body decoys. And this is going to be probably what most people typically associate with goose hunting, especially, if someone hasn't goose hunted before, they're just getting into it. This is kind of the most common kind to associate it with it. And basically, it's a life-size imitation of a goose. So it's basically a mold of an entire goose, and they look very real. They're very effective types of decoys to use. Some of them, as you can see, like this one that I have in this picture, has legs on it, but also you can also see there's like this little stake on the bottom of it that what's called the motion stake, and some full body decoys will have these stakes, and what that allows the decoy to do is kind of move back and forth a little bit in the wind. So that creates kind of like a natural lifelike movement to your decoy. So if there are, so when a geese approach, they can see that there's some movement in the field, and it kind of makes it a little bit more look a little bit more natural to them, and maybe a little bit more susceptible to coming into your decoys. Now, certainly there are a lot of decoys that don't have those motion stakes, but that is one benefit if you do happen to find or to buy decoys that have motion stakes. A couple other things about these decoys, guys, is some of them are flocked, and what that means is, like the head of this one, you can see it's flocked, but basically what that is kind of this feathering type material that's put on the decoys that actually can even add additional level of realism to it, because it kind of gives a feathering look and feel. And then the other benefit with with these is that, I mean, they're definitely, like I said, large and very lifelike. A couple considerations to keep in mind with them is full body decoys are going to be towards definitely your highest end of cost for decoys. So you're probably looking at, for a single, I mean, they typically sell them in at least 6 packs, but I mean, each decoy you're looking probably around, $20 to $40 to $60 each, just really depending on the style and brand and everything you buy. So they're definitely towards the highest end of decoys that you can buy. But again, they do have a high level of realism, so there's some trade-off. The other considerations to keep in mind is that they are, they're large, and so they do take a lot of room when you're transporting a vehicle and storing them at home. So, for example, I actually just have a car. I don't have a truck, so for me, it's not really realistic to transport several dozen of these in my vehicle. I do own some of these, and I'll actually throw in like a half a dozen a lot of times in my vehicle, and that works out well. But having several dozen of these is just typically not feasible. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you've got a truck, definitely you can throw a bunch of those in the bed of a truck. Or if you've got a trailer, that can work out well. There's actually a lot of guys that if they really get heavy into or into goose hunting, you can buy a trailer and keep them in an enclosed trailer. So that's something to consider. And then also storage at home. You are going to have a fair amount of storage space. So let's say you've got a garage, or maybe you live in an apartment, you don't have access to a garage. That's just something to keep in mind, that they're going to take up some space to store them. But again, very highly effective decoys, look great. So you just got to kind of balance the cost along with storage and transportation room. But again, definitely a great option, and something to keep in mind as you build your spread. The next kind of decoy I'm going to talk about is shell decoys here, guys. So basically, a shell decoy, it's similar in look, kind of from the top and outside of like a full body decoy, but basically on the bottom it's a hollowed out shell. And so what that means is that with most of these, the head will actually, you can take the head off, and then you can stack several of these bodies together. I mean, you're talking probably anywhere, several dozen of these bodies together that you can just stack nicely, and you can toss those in like a mesh decoy bag along with the heads, and you could easily store several dozen of these together, no problem. And so for example, myself, with my situation, I do use these quite a bit. I'll throw them in like a mesh decoy bag, and then I can just throw that on my back like a backpack and head out into the field and carry a whole bunch of them out there really easily. And so that's something that's really nice, is that they're easy to transport. I can throw the bag of them in my trunk, and definitely I've got over 60 of these, and easily store those in my trunk and have plenty of other room for my guns and other equipment. So definitely that is a huge advantage of these. Now, some of these do also, like the full-body decoys, that some of them have motion stakes, which you can actually, so it's a stake that you can put in the bottom of them, and it'll elevate the decoy up off the ground probably like 6 inches or so. So that'll help elevate them up to make them a little bit more visible. But also some of those stakes also have a motion stake. So where that is, again, it can help move the decoy back and forth in the wind, and that'll give your decoy spread a little bit of additional realism for the approaching geese. Some considerations with these, certainly, one is just durability. I mean, they are kind of a thinner plastic, so if you did happen to step on them, you certainly could crack them or break them. But that's kind of the case with any decoy, so you're just going to want to make sure you're careful with them. As far as cost, they're definitely going to be a little bit more cost-effective, guys, compared to like a full-body decoy. You're probably talking about, probably anywhere from maybe $15 to $30 or $40 a piece. Again, it just really depends on the brand and style you go with, but certainly a very cost-effective type decoy. It's going to be a little, like I said, a little less expensive than a full-body decoy. But I've had great luck with these over the years, so that's certainly a decoy I'd recommend checking out. Okay, floating decoys. So for those of you that you're going to do any hunting over water, floating decoys are basically going to be your choice. They're very similar compared to the full-body decoy. So it's again, the full size or full look of a goose, an entire mold of it. So they look very realistic to approaching geese. So they're great to use. And on the bottom of them, what you can see here on this image, it's got a keel, and what that is basically like a weighted piece on the bottom of the decoy, and that's what helps keep it upright in the water. And then on the front of that keel there, you can see that there's a little hole, and that's actually where you can tie your decoy line through there. And then on the other end, you'll have a decoy weight, and that's what keeps that decoy floating, but also in one spot so it doesn't float away from you. But the kind of the nice thing with those is that if there is some wind or a little bit of current in the water, it can kind of help your decoy can move a little bit back and forth with that, and again, that can add some realism. So these are really nice. For storage and transporting, similar to a full-body decoy, they don't really fold up or anything like that or stack together super well. So you can buy like slotted decoy bags and put like, let's say like a half a dozen in a slotted bag and carry that over your shoulder. So stuff like that, they definitely have different ways that you can carry them. And same with storing them at home. You're just going to have to find a place to keep them. As far as cost, they are going to also be towards kind of that higher end usually. Again, I would say maybe $20 to $40 to $60 a piece, again depending on the brand, but typically a little bit towards the higher end of the cost of the decoys. But again, if you're hunting over water, these are highly effective and kind of pretty much your only choice, but great option to go with. All right, I got just a couple kinds left here to show you guys. Here is silhouette decoys. And in my opinion, a little bit of an overlooked style of decoy for goose hunters. And I think they should be given a little bit more consideration because, well, basically what these are is they're like a two-dimensional cutout of a goose. And if you think of like an election sign you might see in somebody's yard, those election signs are made out of what's called corrugated plastic. So it kind of looks like cardboard, but it's more durable and it's a little bit more weather resistant and stuff like that. So if you do buy them from a decoy company, typically they're made out of a corrugated plastic, and so they're two-dimensional. So what's kind of neat about them is you can really stack a lot of these easily together. I mean, so since they're flat, you can stack one on top of another and have several dozen of them, no problem. In fact, I hunt with usually about 3 dozen of these on top of some shell decoys I use, but I can easily carry those 3 dozen in a little backpack type pouch bag that I've got for them. So that's really nice, is that I can carry a whole bunch. They're lightweight, and same with transporting in my vehicle. I can just stack put them in that decoy bag and easily transport a whole bunch in my trunk. So that's the benefit of them. As far as some of the considerations with these guys, they are two-dimensional. So what that means is, when you're looking at them straight on, like we kind of are in this picture on the left, they're easily, you can see them. But let's say you were standing right on the side of that. So let's say that all these were facing, like north and south, but you were standing from the side, like looking at them from the east or west. It would be difficult to see them, right, because you're looking at the side of a two-dimensional object. So you have to, with these, I do recommend, maybe having a few more of these compared to some other decoys, because you want to have them all faced in kind of like staggered directions. You kind of want to have a bunch of these and kind of just, face them in all sorts of different directions, because what happens then is as the geese approach your decoy spread, you want to make sure that they can always see some of your decoys regardless of the angle they approach from. So that's why it's important to kind of, put these in all sorts of different directions. Couple other things on silhouette decoys. One is the cost of them is going to be probably one of your least expensive decoys. Usually you can get a dozen of these for maybe between, let's say, like $80 and $150 or so, somewhere kind of in that range. So you're talking, maybe $10 to $15 a piece or somewhere in that range. But one of the lower cost decoys. So definitely a great option if you're on a tight budget or just building your spread, and then you can always continue to build from there. Or if you're adding numbers to your spread as well. So. I do really like these as an option as well, guys, something to definitely keep in mind as you build your spread. And then here, the last kind of decoy I want to talk about is the windsock decoys. So what these are, guys, is basically it is, if you see the decoys in the image here, they have a body made out of, I kind of almost correlate it similar to like a garbage, but not a garbage bag, but like a grocery bag that you might get. But basically, actually, it's made out of, most of these are made out of a material called Tyvek or similar, where it's kind of like a halfway between a plastic and a fabric. But the idea with these guys is as the wind blows, that bag fills up with air and it gives the look of a full body of these. So it makes them look really full and large. And then some of them have a backbone system. So what that does is it helps keep that backbone or that bag, lifted up the entire time, rather than if there was no wind, that bag would just kind of be lying on the ground. So that is one benefit, is if you buy some of these, if you find the kind with the backbone system, that certainly can be a great benefit. And then some of these, like these ones here in this image, do have a head of a goose on them. Some of them don't. The head of it, having a head on these definitely adds a level of realism to them. But so. The benefits of these is they're really easy to transport. You can store a whole bunch, several dozen of these in a decoy bag, no problem, very lightweight. And then also you add movement, so when the wind is blowing, that body can move kind of back and forth, and that can create quite a bit of movement to your decoy spread. So that's certainly a benefit. Now, there are some hunters who are of the belief that actually an entire spread of these might have too much movement for goose decoy or for geese. Personally, I own several of these. I have hunted over spreads of entire windsock decoys and haven't had an issue of bagging use. But it's something you can always try, or maybe you pick up a dozen of these to add into your spread of full body decoys or whatever to add some movement. As far as cost, they're very cost effective. You can usually get actually a dozen of these for like maybe $60 to $100 or somewhere in that range. So very cost effective. And then the one thing to consider with them is you do want to try to keep them pretty clean. You don't want that bag to get really dirty. So just try to keep it off the ground and stuff if you can. But definitely a decoy to keep in mind as you're adding to your decoy spread or getting started out. So, all right. To just kind of give you then a quick recap of the decoys, and helping select what's best for you. Honestly, guys, if you ask around when you're looking at decoys and stuff, people are going to have very strong opinions on what they feel are the best kind of decoy. The waterfowl hunters or goose hunters that have been hunting for years, a lot of them will just, swear up and down that it's got to be full-body decoys and that's all that they'll hunt with. As much as, I do agree that full-body decoys are very effective, I've hunted over spreads of every other kind of decoy and had luck with them too. So, you got to figure out what's best for you in your personal situation. If you don't have the space to invest in a full spread of full body decoys or store them or whatever, don't let one person's opinion steer you. I'd say give the other ones a shot, because you know, I don't want costs to keep you out of this awesome sport of goose hunting. So just keep that in mind. You know, the kind of terrain you're going to hunt. So, you know, if you're hunting over water, of course, you're going to want to look at the floating decoys. Again, your budget, you know, like I said, it really depends on what you've got to spend. I mean, if you're just trying to get going and make sure that you like the sport, you know, doing you know, like the silhouette decoys or windsock or shell decoys, I mean, any of that stuff is certainly fine. And in fact, when I first started goose hunting, I picked up like 24 shell goose decoys off of Craigslist for, I want to say it was like $60. And I mean, they were a little bit in rough shape, so I did have to repaint them. But I mean, the supplies only cost me like 15 or 20 bucks. I mean, so for like 80 bucks, I had enough decoys to get started. And then what I've been doing from then is, you know, always adding and upgrading to my spread. But I plenty of times use those shell decoys that I initially bought, and they're still very effective. So, you know, do what you can with your budget and add from there. Again, the kind of vehicle you have, you know, if you've got a truck or a trailer, great, go for larger decoys. If not, you know, keep some of the other ones in mind. Storage space, you know, again, if you've got space to store them, go with some of the larger style. If not, you know, consider something else. And then finally, the kind of weather. This is actually something I kind of forgot to talk about earlier, but one kind of neat feature of like those silhouette decoys, for example, is let's say it's snowing outside. Since they are two-dimensional, when it snows, actually the snow can kind of just, you know, blow past them and not really, you know, accumulate on their backs. Where in contrast, let's say you're hunting when it's snowing outside and you've got full body decoys or shell decoys, the snow can actually accumulate on their back. And, you know, if you start getting a lot on there, that can kind of look unnatural as geese approach, because real geese, you know, they're not going to let, you know, a foot of snow pile up on their back. So doesn't mean you can't use full body decoys or shell decoys if it's snowing outside, but you would have to get up kind of out of your blind a handful of times and, you know, make sure that you're brushing off your decoys. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. But yeah, hopefully that helps you as you work to select your decoys. And okay, I'm going to move on now to the wind direction and top 3 decoy spreads. Guys, I'm really excited about this part. Again, right now I'm just going to kind of pause for just a quick moment. If you have questions, go ahead and start popping those in the chat box there. So just hit that little question mark on your screen, and then type in any questions you have. I'll be happy to try to take them as we go and get to most of them too at the end as well. All right. Okay, so here, guys, I want to talk about wind direction. And as I said when I got started at the beginning of this presentation, wind direction is going to be like one of the most critical steps to having goose hunting success. And basically, you know, the importance of it is geese land into the wind, okay? And this was not something that I knew right away when I first started goose hunting, okay? So I'm going to just do a little drawing on the screen here to just kind of point this out to you guys. Okay, so if we look at this diagram on the left here, I'm just going to do a little drawing. The wind is blowing this way, okay? So the wind is blowing left to right, and so what that means is that the geese are going to approach from right to left, okay? And think of it kind of like if you were flying a kite, okay? So like if you fly a kite, you kind of toss it up in the air and you kind of run into the wind, right? And that wind keeps the kite afloat in the air, right? And so that's kind of that similar concept then. So like if you wanted the kite to come down, you'd kind of, you know, start reeling in the line, or you'd walk back with the wind and it kind of help give the kite a gentle landing. That's that same concept with geese, is they kind of use that natural lift of the wind to help elevate them, or, you know, kind of keep them, you know, elevated and make that gentle, you know, kind of floating landing. So that's something that's really important. So the difference between the diagram here on the left and the right is simply the wind direction. So on the one on the right here, again, the wind now is changed and it's going from right to left. So the geese are going to come from left to right, okay? And so typically then, as like a hunter, you usually set up with the wind at your back, right? Because then as the geese approach, they're going to approach kind of right towards your face, if that makes sense, okay? So, and then the other thing, guys, is this is also my #1 recommended, or kind of one of the #1 performing goose decoy spreads. And this is called, or commonly considered, like a U or a V type spread. And basically, you know, it's intended to funnel the geese into the into this opening of the U, right, into that landing zone. And if you're a beginning goose hunter or if you're having any challenges pulling in geese, this is definitely a spread I'd recommend giving a shot with to get started, because it's really easy to remember, the shape on how to set it up. Just kind of set them up in a U. And it's just, like I said, with the wind, it's pretty easy to just make sure that you place the opening of that U, it goes in the same direction that the wind is blowing. So easy to spread to get going with. Or if you're having troubles, I definitely suggest, starting with this, and then you can always add and adjust from here. But this is a great decoy spread to get started with. All right, I'm going to move on to the next diagram here. Let me just erase those drawings. All right, and I did get your question here. Sorry, the name left, but about regarding calling. Yeah, let me. I'm going to get into calling, or I'll talk a little bit about that in the questions and answers at the end. I'm not necessarily going to. I can't teach you calling on this presentation today, but what I can tell you is, yeah, it's definitely important to kind of start learning calling. Something you can kind of start playing with. You don't. Honestly, my first couple years, I wasn't very good at calling at all. And if you're still learning, I would recommend you just practicing at home as much as you can. If you get geese to come, if you're in the right spot, you really don't need to call a whole lot. Certainly, it can improve your success at some point as you get better with it. But I would say, practice quite a bit and then start playing with it before trying to use it in the field a lot. You can use it when they're further out in the distance. But then once they get a little bit closer, maybe kind of hold off on it a little bit until you kind of perfect your call. All right, guys, in this diagram here, I'm going to hit play. I've got this animated. But this here, I like to call this spread the paw print. And basically what it is you've got a main base of decoys around the hunters. That's your prime base. And then you've got kind of a couple smaller pods out in front. And kind of what this does is there's a few neat things that this does for you. First of all, the look, and then it kind of ends up looking like the paw print of a dog or something like that, right? So that's kind of why I call it that. So in this one here, you can see the wind is going from left to right. So you can see that the geese now are going to approach from the right to the left. But there's a couple benefits with this spread. One, geese do like to have different landing zones. So you can see where we've got 2 different landing zones, but they kind of have some different landing areas to select from. So that's definitely a benefit. The other benefit is that you can see here that the geese, they're kind of traveling through these lines here. And I'm just doing this as an example, but that's what I like to call an escape path. And so in the later season particularly, as geese have been, shot at quite a bit, they can have a tendency to get wary, right, of decoys and get skeptical. So let's say they're approaching your decoy spread, and there's something they just don't like. Well, they can kind of fly through some of these, some of these escape paths, and then, if the hunters that are in the block that are close to the escape path, hopefully they should have some decent shooting as the geese fly through, right? So, of course, hopefully the geese are still low enough to shoot at and stuff, but it just gives you some of that option because, like I said, if geese, as the time goes on in the year, they can get more wary as they've been shot at. And geese also don't always like to fly over other geese. So this gives them that opportunity to go through some of those spots without flying over other geese, okay? So that's definitely a highly recommended spread to give a shot to. All right, let me move on to the next one. This here, number 3 for the goose decoy spread, this one here I like to call the water confidence. But basically, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about confidence decoys right now. Basically, a confidence decoy is a decoy of a similar bird that's often seen with geese. So most commonly, you're going to be talking about like ducks, but certainly you can have, swans, sandhill cranes, coots, lots of different birds. So the first thing I would recommend is, kind of pay attention to the area that you hunt and see what kind of other birds congregate with geese quite a bit. But by having these some handful of other decoys in with your geese, is you get a couple benefits. And the first one is that it does, like I said, add that level of confidence to the approaching geese, because not only do they see geese in the water, but they're also going to see some other birds, and that means to them that, hey, geese are safe, they feel comfortable here, but also same to other species of birds. So that's a benefit. And then also, a lot of times, like duck season quite often overlaps with goose season for at least a portion of the year. So the benefit too is that if you do happen to pull in some ducks or other waterfowl that are in season, hopefully you get a chance to bag some of those too. So that can be a great benefit. Here, what I typically do is I'll throw them out in kind of different groups of anywhere from like 2 to 4 to 6, and just kind of do them on the edges. I do try to keep those, like in this example, I've got ducks, so I will keep them, kind of in their own little group, sort of, but certainly kind of mixed in with the spread overall. But even adding, like I said, like a half a dozen of them, like I do in this example here, can be highly effective. And then again, with this diagram here, we've got our wind blowing from left to right, so we're going to expect our geese to come that way, right? And so with this kind of opening of a U like that, we should hopefully anticipate those geese to hopefully drop in somewhere in there. So that would be a great water spread to give a shot to, especially if you're hunting like from the shore or anything like that. That's a great water spread to give a shot to, and also just give you a little bit of an overview on confidence decoys. All right, let's move here into the next section. Here, guys, I want to talk a little bit about now blind placement and concealment. So one of the biggest mistakes that I honestly made as well when I first started goose hunting, made a lot, was concealing my blind. The first time, I actually had an incredible spot picked out for goose hunting. The night before, there were a ton of geese out in that field on that exact spot. So I had the right spot. But I set my blind out there. It was a brand new blind. I didn't really, cover it up with much of anything at all, and I had my decoys out there, and I did get geese to come my way, but once they got anywhere relatively close, they flared off. And the reason is that I just didn't understand that I needed to really conceal my blind well. And so how you can do that is, like I do hunt a chopped down cornfield quite a bit. So in most blinds, they'll have these little loops on the side of them that you can loop in, whatever natural vegetation is around you. So, for example, if you are hunting a chopped down cornfield, you can grab some of the corn stalks that the combine may have missed and actually loop those within your blind. And just to really spend some time doing that when you get set up, because certainly the way you have your decoy set up and the wind direction is important. But if the geese can see you guys, you're going to have a very, you're not going to have a very good successful hunt typically. So, weave that stuff in there. You can also, they do sell like stuff that's called like stealth grass, which is actually something you can actually, it's like pre-made type fake grass and stuff, so you can get that in all different kinds of colors to kind of match the field and stuff that you're hunting. So that's an option too, because then the benefit with that is, you don't have to leave that within your blinds every time. It can save you some time and just leave that on your blind. So that's really important. So a couple of things I want to point out here, guys, is first of all, in this setup, let me get my pen here. In this setup, we are hunting with inside of the decoys, right? So this is certainly an effective method. You can place your blind within the decoys, and again, you got to make sure that you're concealed well, because what I do want to point out is as the geese approach, they're going to be typically looking, coming in this way, and they're going to be, kind of focusing in this area and stuff, right? That's where they're going to be looking. So if your blind is not covered well, chances are that, they might see you and flare off. So, this is a very effective hunting method. I've used it a lot myself. A lot of other waterfowlers, use it as well. But again, just keep in mind that you've got to have yourself concealed well, get your blind, covered up with natural covering, things like that, so that you're out of the sight of the approaching geese. But, the benefit of this is that, you are in close shooting distance then to the, to the landing zone. So that's a great benefit of hunting within the decoys. So, definitely, that's one way you can hunt. Let me go to the next one and show you here. We're actually hunting from outside of the decoys. Okay, so this is we've got our wind going left to right. We've got our geese coming in right to left, right? But here we've got our blind set up on the outside of the decoys, and this can be a very effective way to hunt geese as well, because like, again, I'll just use personal example. I hunt the chopped cornfield quite a bit, but later in the season, if the farmers tilled it under or whatever, but there's still geese coming, there might not be as much cover as the year goes on. And so, what I'll do is I'll find on the side of that field, it actually butts up like next to a grass field. So I'll actually set my blind kind of in that taller grass and get it covered up really well, and then place the decoys out in front of me like this. And so that's what's really nice then is, I get to use that natural covering to get myself concealed really well. But then, I just set up the decoys in front of me, and, and then I just set the decoys whichever, based on the wind, I would, adjust the opening of how this V or U is going to go, right? So I just adjust, the way I'm going to set up my decoys. A lot of fields, one of the things I would recommend when you get to a field is, pay attention. Is there enough concealment within the field where you can just weave in natural, covering? Sometimes, too, in fields, there's maybe like a lower area near, some water that you could put your decoy, or that you could put your blind in, or maybe there's a section of the field that, wasn't clear cut as well as some of the others. So just kind of scan the field and pay attention to what's going to give you the best concealment, because again, like I said, that's one of those critical tips to having goose hunting success. A couple other things I want to point out with this, guys, is so again, you could be hunting from here. You could set up further back behind the decoys or this side. So this is just giving you an example of a different place that you could set up your blind, not within the decoys. But you can see here what's neat is that even though I'm set up outside of the decoys, if you're set up right, you're still within good, effective shooting distance of the geese, right? You can see here, you're just going to be shooting them kind of at the side as they come in, rather from directly on. So we're still within really effective shotgun range. Do pay attention though to how far away you set up your furthest decoys. So like this guy here, you probably want to, most shotguns have an effective range of, about 40 yards or so. You can buy extended range choke tubes and things like that to maybe push that distance a little bit further, but you want to be trying to plan most of your shots within 40 yards, because that's going to be, like I said, the most effective range. You don't want to be shooting at birds that are 60 yards away constantly, because you're probably going to be wasting a lot of ammunition, and also you're not going to be probably dropping any of those birds. And finally, even if you do hit them, you may not be killing them, and you just wound them, and we don't want to do that, because then they could maybe still fly away, ended up just suffering later on and dying on their own. So that's something we want to avoid. So just kind of pay attention to how far away you're setting up that furthest out decoy, so that so that you can that you're planning where the geese are at, and that that you're going to be within effective shotgun range regardless of the direction they come from. So that is one of my personal favorites there. So all right, I'm going to keep moving on here. I'm going to get into here a little resource I put together for you to learn some more. But right now, too, go ahead and start typing in the chat box any questions you may have. I'm going to start getting to the questions in just 1 minute. Let me back out the spread here. One thing I did want to show you here, guys, real quick, is actually I have put together a really nice resource for you if you are interested in learning more. Hopefully you can see this on my screen, guys, but I have made an app that's available for both iPhone and Android. And what it does is I've got over 40 different kinds of decoy diagrams for you guys. So I'm just going to pop in the app here real quick and kind of show you just an example. But this is a really handy resource that you can bring with you to the field. Like I said here, I've got over 40 different kinds of diagrams that are, let me just click in one. Well, we were looking at the paw print earlier, so I'll show you that one here. But within each of these tabs here, it gives you, the diagram that I put together. It talks about the benefits of each diagram, and, the different ways and times that you could use it and stuff like that, how many decoys you're going to typically need and stuff like that. So what's really cool is it's a simple resource, but has a lot of great information that you can take with you right to the field. I'm going to show you some of the other stuff that it has. Like I said, over 60 kind of diagrams. It shows you how to hunt if you're hunting in standing corn or water, things like that. So lots of different field diagrams, but also water diagrams as well. And then I also get into some of the other stuff too that's pretty critical for successful goose hunting. So like the decoy placement. So I give you some tips here and examples and images on, like how far away or how far apart to set up your decoys, what direction to face them, how to adjust your decoys quickly. I did talk about wind direction and how that impacts goose hunting, but in here I also get into like how sun can impact goose hunting and stuff like that. Weather conditions, the decoy spread size, all the different decoy body positions you can choose from. So I just jam-packed this thing with full of everything that I wish I would have known like day one that I first started goose hunting, because like I said, I had to kind of go through that struggle of trial and error over the first couple of years before I could really started having a lot of goose hunting success. So I put this together as like a simple way for you to have it to bring with you to the field and stuff, and just and then have those diagrams right at your fingertips and learn more. In fact, it's funny, one of the guys that does have the app, he reached out to me and let me know that him and his buddies use it quite a bit. If they're arguing on how to set up the decoys for the day, they'll pull up the app, look at the diagrams, and make a choice together. So anyways, I do want to recommend picking up that app. If you grab your phone right now, you can just go to the either iPhone app store or Android and just type in DecoyPro, and then you'll be able to pull up that app and download it. It is, like I said, it's on iPhone and Android, and if you type in DecoyPro, you can find it. And also right away after the call here, I'm going to send you the link to download the app as well. So that's a great resource, guys, that I just really wish I would have had something like that when I first got started hunting. And I really think it's well worth it to help improve your goose hunting skills and have an easy resource with you. So that's that. And now I want to get into some questions. So like I said, go ahead and in your chat box there, hit that little question mark and start typing in any questions you may have. I'll make sure I stick around and get them all answered. The first one I've got here is, this is actually a question that typically comes up pretty much every time I talk about goose hunting, is what do I recommend for a brand of goose decoys? And honestly, guys, I mean, I do have a couple brands I use myself, but I would say that well, first of all, when you do ask other waterfowl hunters, people are going to usually have very strong opinions on the kind of brand that they use and that they only use, and that's great. I'm more of the opinion of that you got to use what's best for you. And so we kind of talked about earlier about the different styles of decoys. So not every brand makes every style of decoy. Also, you also got to look at cost. I mean, so there's some brands that are like super great looking, like for example, Avian X is probably towards the top of the line probably of your of decoy types, but they are very they cost quite a bit. So if you're just starting your decoy spread, or you're on a limited budget, I mean, as great as those are, I mean, I told you earlier, I've had success hunting geese over decoys that I bought over off Craigslist that were probably, when I bought them, probably 20 years old, and had good luck with them, and I still use them to this day, and they still work well. So I mean, you can always upgrade and add to your spread at any time as either your budget allows or whatever. But I've hunted with all different kinds of brands, had luck with all of them. So again, just get started, see what works best for you, and then you can go from there. So that's the first one. Do we got any other questions out there, guys? I'll give you another minute here. Like I said, on your screen there, how you spoke to me earlier and gave me your name, you can just hit that little question mark and type in any other questions you may have. I'll give you just another moment here. Okay. All right. Well, guys, I'm not seeing any more questions come through right now. So I do want to thank you very much for joining the call today. I really hope that you've learned a few new things about goose hunting today. Hopefully, it can help you greatly. Actually, let me see here. Greatly improve your goose hunting skills. Right. Actually, it looks like I might have a question. So let me just see. I don't want to end the call before I get my questions answered. Oh, sorry. I'm not seeing questions come through. So okay, we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you do have a question that didn't get answered, go ahead and email me, and I'll get you taken care of. Just visit my website at DecoyPro.com and email me. Otherwise, like I said, I'm going to send you an email right now. Within about 20 minutes, that'll have a replay of this call today, so you can watch it again, and then the link to get the app. But if you have more questions, you can reply to me on there as well if your questions didn't get answered today. But like I said, I hope that this call was valuable to you to get a a great overview of goose hunting, some tips for you, and hopefully it helps you out. So thanks again for joining the call today, and have a great night. Thanks, guys.